So then, time to sum up this lecture series with the second part of chapter number 13 on CCNA Cybersecurity Operations with me, Joachim Chap13 from the University of Skövde. And we will end this chapter with some models and approaches for incident handling, just because that is certainly always what students like the most. So we'll try to jump right in and talk a little bit about CSIRTs, or Computer Security Incident Response Teams. What this is that it's an internal group commonly found within an organization that provides services and functions to secure the assets of that organization. The CSIRT responds to occurred incidents and may also take part in proactive measures. So in different organizations, the CSIRT will have different roles, and there are some different types of CSIRTs. First, we have the internal one, which provides incident handling for the organization in which they reside. And any organization such as a hospital, bank, university, or a construction company, or any other type of organization can have an internal CSIRT. Then we have a national version, which provides incident handling for a country or nation. We have coordination centers, and what those do is that they coordinate incident handling across multiple CSIRTs. One example is the US CERT that responds to major incidents and analyzes threat and exchanges information with other cybersecurity experts and partners across the world. We have analysis centers, and they use data from many sources to determine incident activity trends. And those trends can help us predict future incidents and provide early warnings to prevent and mitigate damages as quickly as possible. So one example of an analysis center is the VERIS community. Remember we talked about the VERIS schema in the last lecture, and the VERIS community is an analysis center in a way. Then we have vendor teams, and what those do is that they provide remediation for vulnerabilities in an organization's software or hardware. And those teams often handle customer reports concerning security vulnerabilities. So let's move on. Oh, what happened? What did I do now? So there we are. Let's move on to NIST 861 R2. Or the NIST recommendations for incident response. And they are outlined in this special publication, 800-61 revision 2, and it's called Computer Security Incident Handling Guide. There is one from SANS that is called something else that you may read for interest in combination with this NIST guideline. So the idea with those guidelines is to provide guidelines for incident handling, particularly for analyzing incident-related data and determining the appropriate response to each incident. And I will give you an overview in the next couple of slides, but Cisco says in the material that you need to read all of it to prepare for the CCNA SecOps industry certification. So, at an overview level, the guidelines are designed so that they are technically independent. You can apply those guidelines no matter what software and hardware you have in your system. And the first part of those guidelines is to establish a computer security incident response capability, or a CSIRC. And NIST recommends creating policies and including plans and procedures for establishing and maintaining a CSIRC. And what we mean with those words is that, well, a policy is an incident response policy that should detail how incidents should be handled based on the organization's mission, size, and function. It should be reviewed regularly and adjusted to meet the goals of the roadmap that has been laid out. So the idea with a policy is that it's a high-level document that basically tells us how an incident should be handled in accordance to the organization, or the idea with the organization. Then we have the plan, which includes a mission, organizational approach, and communication plan, and it's intended to ensure that everyone knows what everyone should be doing during an incident. And then finally we have procedures, including technical procedures that should be followed during an incident handling. So you can say that policy, plan, and procedure are basically 3 levels of documents that outline how incidents are handled within an organization, where you have the policy at the top level establishing the goals, the plan, which is a little bit more detailed, and the procedures that tells you actually how to do things. And depending on the size and scope of an incident, and of course the size and scope of the organization, many different stakeholders may be involved and concerned in different ways. So, for instance, we have the management that create policies that everyone must follow. They are also, of course, in charge of the budget and staffing, so they must coordinate the incident response with other stakeholders to minimize the damage, and they are in charge of the money. Then we have information assurance, and this group may need to be called in to change things such as firewalls rules during some stages of incident management or other technical stuff. Then we have IT support, and this is the group that works with the technology in the organization, and also those that have the most contact with everyone else. So whenever an incident occurs, it's natural for users to contact IT support, and therefore IT support needs to, of course, be there and know how to respond. Then we have legal department, and those usually review incident policies, plans, and procedures, so to make sure that we follow local and federal guidelines. We have public affairs and media relations, and you should know that public affairs. Okay, that's a spelling error. You should know that depending on the type of organization you work in, there may be a medial interest if we are targeted by an attack. Human resources, those may be needed in order to, for instance, perform disciplinary measures if an incident is caused by an employee. We have business continuity planning, and those are there for, security incidents may alter the ability of an organization to carry on doing business. So it's important to have those in charge of continuity planning aware of security incidents and the impact of the organization. And this group may also help with deciding and planning how the organization should carry on doing business, even if we are, for instance, out of IT. Then we have physical security and facilities management. Whenever an incident occurs, physical security may be an issue, or it may be so that lack of physical security enables an attack, for instance, with using tailgating or shoulder surfing. So let's move on from the stakeholders and end off with the incident response lifecycle. So NIST defines 4 steps in the incident response process lifecycle. As you can see in the picture here, we have preparation, detection analysis, containment, eradication, and recovery, and finally post-incident activity. So in the preparation phase, the member of the CSIRT, the team, are trained on how to respond to incidents. Then we have detection analysis, and when we can see that something happens, it's important that the CSIRT quickly manages to identify and validate an incident to know what is actually going on. Then we have containment, eradication, and recovery, where the CSIRT implements procedures to contain the threat, remove it, and remove the impact of it, and then use backups to restore data and software. Those 2 phases may, of course, cycle, because you detect something, you fix it, and then you detect something else. So finally, when we are done with the incident, we have post-incident activities, and this is a phase that is, in my opinion, sometimes neglected, but it's very important. And this is where the CSIRT documents how the incident was handled and recommend changes for future responses, and also use the lessons learned in this incident handling instance to improve the security in the organization. So, for instance, we may find vulnerabilities, and we can be able to patch them as a part of good post-incident work. So that's what I wanted to discuss in this chapter. The curriculum is, of course, much more detailed, so I urge you to have a look on this NIST standard on your own. And then I will actually leave it there. So this is all for this course. I want to thank you for following it. I hope you learned something. I want to stress once again that the written curriculum is much more detailed than the video lectures that you may just watched. I also want to urge you to do the practicals, because that's a very good way to, get a break from reading, but also to emphasize the theoretical knowledge that you acquired. If you liked this lecture series, there are some more series on Cisco material and forensics and some other topics on my YouTube channel that you are of course very welcome to watch. As you know, material gets outdated and new material arises, but some of it is still fairly okay, in my opinion. I also want to tell you that the University of Skövde, where I reside, offers distance as well as campus studies in Swedish as well as English, and you can browse our course offerings at www.his.se if you know Swedish, or apply /en at the end if you prefer English. So with that said, that's actually it for this lecture series. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for your attention, and feel free to leave questions where they belong in the comments field, but remember to have a positive attitude. So thank you and goodbye.